1974. In a glass-walled room chilled by industrial air, a single dropped stack of punch cards can erase weeks of work. This is life as a computer scientist in America in the 1970s, where million-dollar mainframes rule. Every bug means another sleepless night, and the future of technology hangs on a fragile ribbon of paper. Why did some risk everything for a chance at change? The hum of chilled air never stopped. Inside the glass-walled computer room, every surface was spotless, every cable tucked beneath raised floors. An IBM System 360 dominated the space, its console lights flickering behind a thick barrier of glass. Programmers never touched the machine itself. Instead, they lined up at a small operator window, clutching decks of punch cards, each card a single line of code, each deck a week's work. The ritual was precise. Cards rubber-banded into stacks, sequence numbers penciled at the corner, a nervous double check before handing them over. Operators in crisp shirts would inspect the deck, sometimes frowning at bent corners or a stray coffee stain. The cards disappeared into a reader that could devour 1,000 cards in a minute, the sound a rapid mechanical chatter that echoed off the tiles. A dropped stack could spell disaster. One careless moment and hundreds of cards scattered across the linoleum, the order lost, the program ruined unless every card was painstakingly sorted by hand. Some programmers added extra sequence numbers just in case. Others whispered a silent prayer as they slid their deck through the window, hoping the operators would treat it gently. Behind the glass, reels of magnetic tape spun and line printers hammered out fanfold paper, but the only contact was through that narrow slot. The machine room was a world apart, climate-controlled, sealed, and policed by operators who guarded the million-dollar mainframe with quiet authority. For the scientist on the outside, progress depended on a fragile chain of paper and the steady hands of someone else. Every morning began with a line. Programmers gathered outside the operator's window, clutching their card decks and watching the clock. The batch queue was a silent contest, whose job would make the cut for the next run, whose would be bumped to the bottom by a higher priority payroll or billing job. The schedule was rigid, but the reality was less predictable. A typo or a mispunched card meant another day lost. Some scientists showed up before dawn, hoping to slip their deck in early, only to find the queue already snaking down the hall. The hum of anticipation mixed with the low-level anxiety of wasted time. Dress codes added another layer of formality. Suits, ties, and polished shoes were standard, even for those who spent their days hunched over coding sheets. At IBM and most universities, a programmer in jeans would attract stares. The culture prized order and professionalism. No coffee cups near the machines, no shortcuts in the process. Operators enforced the rules with quiet authority, sometimes moving a familiar face's job up in the stack, or quietly setting aside a deck that looked sloppy. Waiting for results was a test of patience. After submitting a job, there was nothing to do but wait, sometimes 12 hours, sometimes until the next day. Some paced the halls, others retreated to their offices to draft new code by hand or pore over thick manuals. The emotional toll was real. Anxiety over a lost day, frustration at a cryptic error message, relief when a clean printout finally landed in the outbox. Each cycle of waiting and hoping shaped the pace of work and the culture more than any machine ever could. A new kind of power arrived when departments managed to buy their own mini-computers. The DEC PDP-8, priced around $18,000, and later the PDP-11, suddenly put real machine access within reach of graduate students and young researchers, not just senior staff. For the first time, someone could walk into a lab, sit down at a terminal, and interact directly with a computer instead of waiting for the next batch run. This hands-on access changed how people worked. A student wrestling with a Fortran loop or a COBOL data division could now type code at a teletype, submit it, and see results in minutes instead of waiting overnight. Mistakes that once cost a whole day could be fixed in a single session. The difference was dramatic. Compilers on these machines still were not fast. Sometimes a compile took half an hour, but the ability to test, correct, and rerun code in real time made a world of difference. Debugging became a process of discovery, not dread. Instead of reading dense printouts and hunting for a single typo, programmers could make a change and try again on the spot. The PDP-11, with a price tag of $20,000 to $65,000, depending on configuration, became the workhorse of university labs and small research groups. Departments pooled grant money to buy time on these machines, and students learned to share terminals, taking turns late into the night. This new access gave rise to a different kind of computer scientist, one who learned by doing, not just by planning. The lab became a place of experimentation and quick feedback where the line between theory and practice blurred. For many, it was the first taste of real agency in a field that had always been defined by waiting and hierarchy. Inside research labs, the sense of possibility was electric. At Bell Labs, Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson spent long nights reimagining how people might interact with machines. Their work produced Unix, a lean operating system that ran on minicomputers and in 1972 was rewritten in a new language called C. This combination made it possible to move software between machines, an idea that felt almost magical when most code was locked to one hardware platform. Word spread through academic circles as magnetic tapes carrying Unix and C arrived at universities like Berkeley, where students pored over the source code, added their own features, and sent improvements back to Bell Labs. Meanwhile, a handful of universities were quietly building something even stranger, a network that could link computers across the country. ARPANET's first 4 nodes, UCLA, Stanford, UC Santa Barbara, and the University of Utah came online in 1969, and by the early 1970s, new connections reached MIT and Harvard. Graduate students traded email, shared files, and logged in remotely to distant machines. For most, it felt like a science experiment, not the start of a global network. The first network crash caused a flurry of excited messages, not panic. At Xerox PARC, researchers like Adele Goldberg and Alan Kay were sketching out the future of personal computing. The Alto prototype, built in 1973, featured a graphical interface, a mouse, and Ethernet networking, years before those ideas reached the wider world. Down the hall, Bob Metcalfe's memos described how Ethernet could connect dozens of Altos, turning a single lab into a digital community. In the same building, laser printers and object-oriented programming languages like Smalltalk took shape, redefining how people would one day work with computers. Other frontiers felt even more abstract. IBM researchers explored E.F. Codd's theory of relational databases, while AI labs, flush with funding, promised smart machines that could play chess or translate languages. Computer graphics advanced from wireframes to early 3D models, with demos that left visitors stunned. Most of these breakthroughs felt esoteric, tucked away in technical papers and conference proceedings. Yet the people behind them believed they were inventing the future, even if the world outside had not noticed yet. January 1975 brought a jolt that no mainframe lab or corporate office could ignore. The Altair 8800, A blue metal box with switches and blinking lights landed on the cover of Popular Electronics. Suddenly, the idea of owning a computer was not science fiction or corporate privilege. It was a mail-order kit for $439. Within weeks, a loose network of tinkerers and dreamers started gathering in garages across Silicon Valley. The first Homebrew Computer Club met in Gordon French's Menlo Park garage, 30 people crowding around a folding table, passing the Altair's circuit boards from hand to hand. Laughter and solder smoke filled the air as strangers traded schematics and phone numbers. Nobody wore a suit. Nobody asked for permission. Here, the rules of the mainframe world did not matter. The excitement was contagious, a new tribe forming, convinced that computers could belong to anyone willing to build one. By 1977, the Apple II arrived on store shelves. It showed that computers could be more than kits for hobbyists. They could be polished products for homes and schools. Industry revenues soared from $9 billion at the start of the decade to $27 billion by 1979. IBM still held more than 60% of the mainframe market, but the ground was shifting beneath their feet. Salaries for computer scientists climbed, with experienced professionals earning $25,000 or more, a comfortable living at the time. Around 1/4 of computer science degrees went to women, and figures like Grace Hopper inspired a generation, though the field remained mostly white and male. The decision facing many was clear: stay with the security of a corporate job, or risk everything for a chance in the new world of personal computing. The tools may have changed, but the tension between tradition and innovation still shapes every major breakthrough in tech. Today's digital world was built by those willing to question the status quo. That spirit remains the engine of progress and the challenge for every generation that follows. Share your thoughts below.